Ukraine has been making big advances in the battlefield against Russia. The Ukrainian flag has been flying high in reclaimed territory, and President Volodymyr Zelensky visited some areas where Russian troops had retreated. Following these setbacks, Russian President Vladimir Putin escalated the rhetoric on Wednesday.
Для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
Previously, the Kremlin said that nuclear weapons would be used only if Russia faced an existential threat. Now they said any attack on its territory could generate that kind of a response.
Putin's nationally televised speech drew condemnation from some world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly.
Putin claims he had to act because Russia was threatened, but no one threatened Russia.
It seems like the U.S. and Western countries will continue their tough approach toward Russia and aren't going to be backing down.
So here's what the West might do next and Russia's challenges as the war grinds on in Ukraine. After Putin's speech, protests broke out in multiple Russian cities, and authorities detained nearly 1,000 people. The public outcry was sparked by his call to mobilize as many as 300,000 reservists.
Putin is looking at only a partial mobilization because a full mobilization in a full war risks creating unpopularity and could even endanger his rule at some point in the future. So he's trying to strike a balance between escalating the war and not doing anything that's too unpopular with the Russian people.
The mobilization order speaks to what Russian political analysts describe as Putin's tactic to double down and take risks when facing setbacks.
One of the challenges for Russia will be to integrate any new personnel from the military mobilization into the fighting force, into brigades, into forces that can succeed in Ukraine. Whether they'll succeed in that is a big question.
Russian officials have also recently announced plans to hold votes to annex 4 occupied regions in Ukraine's east and south.
Greetings to all people.
At the UN on Wednesday, the Ukrainian president called the referendums a sham and received a standing ovation after his speech.
The crime was committed against the values that make you and me a community of the United Nations. And Ukraine demands punishment for trying to steal our territory.
Not all world leaders at the gathering voiced full support for Ukraine in their speeches. Cuba condemned Western sanctions on Russia, while Iran blamed the U.S. for the situation in Europe.
As far as the West goes, the next steps are decisions about whether to stay the course on Ukraine, to double down and keep supporting Ukraine with weapons and other types of intelligence support.
Along with reiterating their support, some Western governments have called Russia's moves a sign of weakness and a failed strategy.
The United States wants this war to end on just terms, on terms we all signed up for, that you cannot seize a nation's territory by force.
There may be a situation where some countries in the West or some countries around the world will be a little bit wary about escalating a conflict. Some countries could withhold military hardware. This kind of concern could make politicians and their constituents think twice about supplying so many advanced weapons to Ukraine.